Okay, we're gonna get started today. Good morning, or should I say good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to today's Mink Wahine Leadership Series event focused on recruitment and retention. If you can see on the screen, we've got a short agenda here, so feel free to add any questions that you have in the chat, or if you have any issues, feel free to add it to the chat and we'd be happy to get that fixed for you. So now I'd like to introduce Colleen McAlooney. She is the director here at the Patsy T. Mink Center for Business and Leadership, and she will kick us off.
Thank you, Krista. Thanks so much, and welcome to everyone to our event today. I would just like to thank all of you very much for joining us. We are the Patsy T. Mink Center for Business and Leadership, and this is our first Wahine Leadership Series event of 2022. I'd like to thank our VIP sponsors, Central Pacific Bank, First Hawaiian Bank, Hawaiian Electric, Hawaiian Telcom, and HEMIC, and also to all of you attendees for coming. As the only women's business center in Hawaii, the Patsy T. Mink Center for Business and Leadership is proud to support our local women leaders in their personal and professional growth and development. As we started the new year, please remember that the MCBL team wants to provide you with the relevant tools and takeaways to support your leadership journey. We're grateful today to our facilitators, and I'd like to thank, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of order. I'm so sorry. Okay, first I want to thank Krista Nishimoto, our program coordinator here at the Patsy Mink Center, and thank her for all of her support in getting this webinar off the ground this morning. Couldn't do it without her, definitely. So thank you so much, Krista. And now I would like to introduce our moderator and speakers. Our moderator today is Terry Nobriga. She is Senior Associate at Booz Allen Hamilton. And Cheryl Cross, she is Talent Acquisition Professional at CA Cross and Associates. And Sarah Gay, the VP of Human Resources at Hawaii Employers Mutual Insurance Company, otherwise known as HEMIC. So I'm going to pass it off to our moderator, Terry Nobriga, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, Colleen. Aloha, everyone. I am honored and excited to be today's moderator during the first Mink Wahine Leadership event of the series for 2022. So let me first introduce our two highly respected women leaders who are our panelists today. Cheryl Cross is a recruiting and marketing and communications professional. As an active civic steward, Cheryl Cross served on the Workforce Development Council, the Employee Engagement Committee for the state of Hawaii, the Department of Labor, and as an executive board member and upcoming president for the Organization of Women Leaders, or OWL. Prior to her move to Honolulu, Cheryl was the principal consultant for CA Cross and Associates, and she's now, she is also in that role doing boutique management consulting group, and she specializes in small to medium businesses and nonprofit teams build out growth and management. She started her career in the radio industry as an on-air broadcaster and music director in her hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada. And in her free time, she likes to narrate audiobooks and create unique quilts for friends and family. So welcome, Cheryl. And Sarah Gay is a passionate HR executive with experience leading people, culture, and change initiatives in some of Hawaii's best places to work. Sarah currently serves as the VP of Human Resources at HEMIC, the state's largest provider of workmen's compensation services. Prior to her role at HEMIC, Sarah served as Senior Vice President of Organizational Development at American Savings Bank, where she led the change management and teammate readiness strategies related to the construction of ASB's new campus in downtown Honolulu. Sarah also led culture-based development initiatives at ProService and Hawaii Job Corps Center. So welcome, Sarah. So we have some connections. Sarah and I were both cohort 3 Patsy T. Mink Leadership Alliance sisters, and Cheryl Cross and I have worked in our previous life at Booz Allen. I work there now, but so it's great to be here today with all of you. So as Colleen mentioned, today's Mink Wahine Leadership Series is a conversation about recruitment and retention in particularly for today's Great Resignation era. So we're going to talk about what efforts businesses as well as leaders can take to recruit new talent and retain current employees in today's environment. And we also will discuss career progression during this unprecedented time. So as we dive into the conversation today and share topics or share thoughts about the topic, I'll be monitoring the chat. So please feel free to insert questions throughout so we can make this hopefully more of a conversation. Okay, just to give some background, at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, employers across all industries faced very difficult personnel decisions, and some organizations were forced to reduce their workforces. Now, as 2 years later, as a sense of normalcy kind of instability returns, employers are finding themselves facing new challenges. And you as leaders are probably seeing these and facing these challenges as well. Beginning in early 2021, over 4 million employees voluntarily quit their jobs. The main demographic are 30 to 45-year-olds. And now there are 11 million jobs and that are open and that are growing. So probably reading and kind of experiencing this for yourself, many of those contributing factors included accelerating retirement, so senior level positions opening up because people who might have not necessarily retired, COVID kind of accelerated those plans. So there's more job openings to fill at the higher levels, and they are being filled by internal candidates, and so lower level openings are happening. People are also altering perspectives as to what is important in their life and subsequently making changes. And others, due to high workloads and just the blurred lines of home and work life, that kind of hit the breaking point for some. And others wanted more control and flexibility in their future of work. So whatever the reasons for this Great Resignation era, definitely people have more choices and they can make different decisions than they might have made before. So let's kick it off with a conversation kind of revolving around retention. And I'll direct it to Sarah. Sarah, as a talent and human capital leader in the state of Hawaii, what is your perspective on how companies and leaders within those organizations can mitigate talent turnover and rebuild their workforces and position themselves to retain the talent despite these challenging market conditions?
Thanks, Terry. It's really it's a privilege to be here today, and I'm really excited to be a part of the conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts on retention and learn as well from Cheryl and others on the call. So thanks for having me here today to talk about something that I'm really passionate about. And that's a huge question, right? To start us off with, it's like, how do organizations and leaders address this disrupted workplace, mitigate turnover, retain talent? I hate to start us off this way, but I don't know if I had the answer for that. I would love to be able to give the silver bullet and everyone could hang up and go, enjoy the rest of their afternoon. But the short answer is it's not a quick, easy fix. And I think a lot of us are looking for that quick, easy fix because of the numbers that you shared, Terry, right? This is big, it's real. And a lot of us are experiencing it. So what I'd like to share today are some things that I've learned, some things that we've done at HEMIC, some things that I've seen happen, but I'm really hoping that we can have a good dialogue and ask some good questions. And if there's folks who've also had strategies work for them, it'd be great to hear those, to share them as well. So let's start off. The first part of the question was around what can organizations do? And I think one of the things that can be done that we know we've heard from job seekers over the last year and a half is more than ever looking for that connection to purpose, to a mission, to knowing that their work has an impact that resonates deeply with them. So if that's what job seekers are looking for, then how can an organization respond? And I think one of the most important things that organizations do right now is really double down on that strong cultural DNA. So this is taking a look at their mission, vision, and values, and kind of coming at that with fresh eyes. I mean, the world as we knew it has been disrupted and unended in so many different ways, right? And so the DNA, the cultural DNA of our organization that got us here may need to shift a little bit for what lies ahead. And so taking a pause at the leadership level and really examining and reviewing who is your company, what's the purpose of your company, what's the big vision for why you exist, and ensuring that your employees hear that more than ever. And along the, so if that's the what the work is and why it matters, then there's also the really important step of looking at the how, and that's your core values and how work gets done in your organization. And making sure that you're explicit about that, because that's going to help employees have that sense of like, yes, those values of the organization resonate with me and I fit in here. And that's really important. We hear that a lot about I fit here, I belong here. And so talking about your values, number one, analyzing them, talking about your values and getting them out front allows people to connect with them. And that's really, really important. Just a quick story at Hemic during the sort of COVID, now it's 2 years. As everyone was working remotely, we took a pause and looked at our core values. And in the absence of being able to see people face to face and being able to really leverage the relationships, that's kind of the strength of who we as an organization are, we really noticed that that was missing for us. And that led us to think about, if that's so important and we're missing it so much, that must be part of our fabric. And so we identified a new core value, which we hadn't done in over 20 years, which was a value around connection. And so now in our core values, we have a new connection value that talks about the importance of our people and our relationships. It's kind of like we knew it before, but now we're articulating it and making sure that our employees embrace that as part of the way we work at Hemic. So that's a good example of that core values piece. So that's the organizational side. But if you're sitting on the call and you're like, well, I'm not in HR, I'm not going to revamp core values or look at the mission or the vision. What can I as a leader do? I think a lot of leaders are feeling a little helpless, like just watching people walk out the door. So what can they do? And I don't want to oversimplify this, but it kind of boils down to, I'm going to boil it down to 3 things. Like, number one, the good news is we know that in normal times, managers play a key role in keeping their employees engaged in their work. We know that managers have up to 70% of the differentiation between an employee's level of engagement. In other words, that relationship with an employee and their manager matters. We always hear people leave people, they don't leave organizations, right? And so flip that on its head, and managers have a huge opportunity right now to really strengthen those relationships to impact retention. So how do you do that? And I would just, again, boil it down to 3 things. And this is massively oversimplifying something that's super complicated. People are messy. And so I do want to recognize that. 3 things though, just for sake of how to think about it. The first one would be clarity. As managers, our people need to know what's expected of them. They need to have clarity around what's expected. They need to have clarity on where they stand. So things like making sure job descriptions are up to date, making sure that they haven't just kind of evolved over the years. People need to know, be able to say at the end of the week, I've had a good week. And that level of clarity comes from clear expectations and a good job description and clarity on roles. So clear. The second one is curious. So as managers, we can get curious in our relationships with our direct reports, asking about how they're doing, asking about, why do you work here? What's kept you here all these years? What motivates you? Spend this time getting really curious to connect with your employees one-on-one and really understand them. Maybe you've had someone who's worked for you for years and years and years, and you have a lot of assumptions built up over time. This might be the time to really get curious and get to know them at a deep level. And then last but not least is kindness. And you'll notice I said kindness and not nice. So as managers, this is a time for us to be kind. Kind can be a little uncomfortable, but kind is about recognizing the benevolence and the obligation that we as leaders have to the people who report to us. This is giving them the straight scoop. This is having the courage to have conversations about reality when it's there. So kindness is about making sure that when staff are talking about, I want to do, what's really important to me is I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and I really don't like this part of my job. The nice thing to do would be to go, okay, great, you can do less of that. But kindness is saying, man, I'm really committed to you and you're an amazing employee and we're working together to figure this out, but that might be part of the job going forward. And how can we work together to make that work? So kindness is about being brave and being willing as leaders to give the straight scoop and be benevolent and empathetic and emotionally intelligent and all that important things that goes with real, authentic leadership of our people. So it's clear, curious, and kind as leaders. How can we retain our staff?
Thanks, Sarah. You mentioned that it's really important to have a company, company's cultural DNA and their core values, and the importance of understanding, like being curious in relationships and really understanding for your people what is their why, and then how important it is to connect or to help them see how their why connects to the company's purpose and values.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly right, Terry. And that's how you get to that connection, is through curiosity and asking those good questions. And sometimes some kindness needs to come in there as well around the reality of where those line up and where sometimes they may not. Yeah. Great recap.
Yeah, and Cheryl, did you want to add anything to that conversation about
Sarah is such a hard act to follow, but I want to say thank you because I want to really emphasize the kindness. It's, as a recruiter bringing people on, we always want to, we're so focused on the front end. Talent acquisition is looking for people, but getting them, but talent management is the next step. It's the business. And that's where you all fit in. If you're not in HR, you have an obligation to keep these people and really keep doing what we sold them. So and we'll go into more detail on this, but I want to convince people, my recruiters want to convince people that this is a wonderful organization, that you will feel safe, supported, that you will have a career for as long or as short as you want. And that is your choice, because we're in a time of choice right now. So thank you, Sarah, for bringing that up. And I so agree, there is no silver bullet, but why these forums are so important is that we get to share and learn from one another. So Sarah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Very important.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl.
So on the recruiting piece, when we talk about, because there's so many openings, right? And when we do have gaps, how can we as leaders within our firm best incentivize candidates to come on board with us? And how do we recruit the right people in the right job and ensure the right fit?
That is the age-old question. In 30 years of my career, I can tell you that has come up, and there's different solutions for different times. When I joined Hawaii and came here 5 years ago, we were at 2% unemployment. That number has risen dramatically because of the events that have happened. But at 2% unemployment, that was a challenge. And at 30 to 40% unemployment, that's a challenge. It depends on the time. So what I would tell you all, which you all are learning through these forums and these groups, is to stay flexible. You really have to stay agile and look at pivoting where you can. And my absolute favorite, I will go back to it every time, we have to go back to the old school ways. Think of the time before the internet. Think of the time before the cell phones and we had access to information 24/7. Go to grassroots marketing. And what grassroots marketing looks like in a recruiting world is your employee referrals. Your employees, the people that you serve, that you have on your teams rather, know exactly who needs to be sitting next to them. How do you incentivize, and this is Sarah's wheelhouse, but I was just listening to Tim Ferriss talk to a former executive from Uber, and what they did was really interesting, and I'd like to bring this up because it could work. It may work, but it should be a conversation with your leadership team. They front-loaded an incentive, a dollar amount or a thing, at the beginning of their fiscal year and said, we actually think you're going to bring people to this organization. And so if they did it, they didn't lose it. So they got it, and because they wanted to keep it, they played into it, if that makes sense. So by front-loading an incentive, whatever it is, and I'm not saying every organization can do this because government contracting is working with government dollars. There's a lot of restrictions on that. Banks have other restrictions. It really depends on what your leeway is, but let's just say it's a thing or a bucket of opportunity. What is it you can take away if it's not produced? So you are asking people to perform against something they don't want to lose, and it is for everybody. It's for everybody. I just consulted a small business in Kapolei, and they're a legacy firm. They've been 3 generations of families, and they've always had coconut wireless. You know, they can call everybody, but they've lost that because they're having to expand it into Guam. They're going to other places. They don't really have the connection. We ran a very simple $50 campaign. They've had 20 people referred in the last 2 weeks. They're blown away. So really be creative. Recruiting is a lot of fun, and you got to change with the times. There is a ton of people out there that are looking for things you don't have. And the people internally, which is talent management, are starting to leave, which makes it very difficult. It's a feeling of desperation. And executives like Sarah, the people that I work with, even Terry as a business leader, you know, this is a struggle because you get anxious. But flip that and turn it into, I don't want to say a game, but incentivize it. Make it fun, because it really is fun to bring new blood, new people, new eyes, new people to the conversation, and a diverse, inclusive mix of people. Maybe you could even look at it as changing the structure or the character of your organization.
And you mentioned something, Cheryl, about everyone being a recruiter and ambassador. And because we're in this environment where many candidates are really just looking to see what's out there, how important is it for everyone to understand their firm's value proposition?
It's a very hard conversation for small businesses. It's an essential conversation for medium to large size businesses. And again, looking at the restrictions, if you're working with certain levels of money, if you're working in the government contracting space versus banking versus that, you really want to be cognizant of how your ambassadors are showing their ambassadorship. So with social media, that obviously opens a lot of traps for people to share or overshare. So as someone who also trains, I always ask, what is it you're doing to train them on the appropriate social media? Because you don't want them to go out and start representing your company and then, you know, show a wild party on Fridays. It is, you know, perhaps they create another page or something like that, or keep something private away from the public's view. Doing some sort of enhanced evaluation on those people who have the most touch points, I think is valid, but it should not be punitive. It should be engaging, and it should be educational. The other thing is, yes, we're all ambassadors. I talk to people standing in line at Foodland Farms. I will talk to anybody about something I'm passionate about. It's your job as leaders to make these jobs exciting, to make your company enticing, to make them seek out that fit. Oh, you're a manufacturing person. You work at the Navy shipyard. My friend so-and-so, or do you know we have this division? It's about connections, and not everybody does it. Don't force them to do it. But again, if you can train them how to do it, maybe they don't know. This is an opportunity to engage and really educate your staff.
And thank you, Cheryl. Sarah, from your perspective, how does your firm and how have you seen you be successful in developing pipelines of candidates, given what we're going through, knowing that there's more resignations probably on the way? How can leaders ensure that they have a healthy pipeline of candidates?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's, you know, I'm glad Cheryl brought up the value proposition idea. And I think that's really, really important for this reason. What I heard, so I attended a couple of job fairs last week, and I was listening and met with a ton of candidates, and what I kept hearing was less about I want to come because I want to do this work. Like, this is how I want to spend my day transacting. What I heard over and over and over was, I want to work at this kind of place with these kinds of people doing this, having this type of impact. And so I think that's the part you gotta, like, that's what, that's the part you gotta be in touch with, right? So that you can articulate it. And yes, if for medium and larger organizations, that's an org-wide kind of campaign or communication strategy. But even the smallest organizations that have employees, you need to be able to talk through that, right? You need to be able to talk about who we are, why you want to work here, not the transacting piece, but what's your value proposition? Why would someone work here versus somewhere else? And not because it is such a competitive landscape, but because if you're appealing to people based on, again, that kind of DNA and who your culture is, that's how you get people who come in and grow and stay with the organization. If they're only coming in to fill a box, then once that's like one and done, they check the box, they move. But if they come in because of who you are and the impact that you make and the things you stand for, then they're a lot more likely to move through multiple boxes. And I think that's what you want. But that doesn't happen overnight. Like that takes some really intentional effort to think about your value proposition. Did I answer your question, Terry? I'm not sure I did. Oh, you asked about pipelines.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I real fast talk about pipelines?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So one of the things that we've done is worked closely with the universities, and that used to always be a great strategy, but now everyone's doing that. So it's good, but things like clubs, Scheidler has amazing student clubs, and we've met a lot of great college graduates that way. So getting involved in their professional interaction nights, mock interviews, things like that, just builds a really good relationship. So that's built some strong pipelines, and I would really encourage that. I want to put a huge plug in for West Oahu. Those folks are incredibly responsive to business partners and just have an amazing student body. So West Oahu is a place where we've built some really strong relationships. Also internships, and not minimizing the opportunity that can come through internships. Whether they're in the summertime or whether they're all year. And what we've learned is, it's February, it's not too early to start talking about internships. At the job fairs last week, students were asking about internships. So thinking about that again as less about an intern who comes in and does a box, and an intern who comes in and experiences your entire organization. I think that's another really, really valuable and untapped pipeline that we can all develop.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. Cheryl, did you want to add something?
Thank you for seeing my hand. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Again, this goes back to grassroots, old school, interns, apprentice, people that you're training to learn your organization, that you're passing your skills or your knowledge. This was very popular in the crafts and the trades. If you've ever visited Venice and you've taken the boat to Murano, you'll see that this is a third, fourth, fifth generation. You don't get in to be a glassblower at Murano because you went to RISD in Rhode Island. You have to be family, and you have to, and if you get in and you're not from anywhere near Italy, you have to spend hours upon hours on training. So that's a skill, that's a craft, that's a trade, right? But we need to look at this as we really want to bring people in. It's not just standing and opening a booth at University of Hawaii or Chaminade or HPU. It is about engaging those people. And when you do hire those early careerists, give them a path where they can excel, and then feed back to those younger, classmates that they have. Look at your interns as a 4-year chunk. So they've had their, well, if you're doing engineering or whatever, just let's say Scheidler, let's say the business school. So you're bringing MIS people over from Scheidler. Well, that group is it's very close because it is a business school. And you've got the seniors are making impacts to the freshmen. So that's a 4-year conversation that they're having. And when they get hired by your organization, they're continuing to flow with that conversation by going back. I think people just, have the recruiters go, have the HR persons go, have the engineers go. No, hire the alumni or have the alumni go, give them some administrative support and time to go do this because they have a personal experience. And lastly, I just want to add to what Sarah said so beautifully. Working in certain spaces with certain restrictions on money, you are not allowed to offer jobs, let's say, to a government employee. So if you're at client site and you're working next to somebody who's a GS, a government service or military, you can never be perceived as offering a job because that's not part of the gig. You can talk about your own experience and you can talk about how you have found that company, be it, ABC, XYZ company. And I think that's really good hygiene for everybody. You know, your job is not to offer a job when you meet somebody for 5 minutes or work with them for a week. Your job is to tell your story, which is authentic, and it will always keep you safe. Educate your staff to do this, and you will get more referrals than you can even imagine. One of the questions in the chat was responding to that. You know, we want to find qualified people. I'm afraid if we get all these referrals, you don't incentivize for the number of referrals, really. You don't have to do that. It could be against hire. You know, if you're seeing, and you, again, pivot. If this isn't working after the first quarter, fix it for the second, the third, the fourth. It's not, you're not a tree. You're not planted. You can move. It's okay. You are able to change these things pretty quickly by working with your HR and legal teams and your leadership, of course.
Thanks, Cheryl. We have a question in the chat from Christy Hatsnaka. What are your thoughts on hiring an experienced professional with years of experience versus hiring someone of less experience but great attitude and eager to learn?
I'll let you take the swing at that, Cheryl.
Okay, I want you to take a swing of it too. Can you be on the bench on that one? I love hiring firm fits, cultural fits, people, and when I say that, that's always misinterpreted. There's a blend of a professional, and they're usually more senior, mid-level to senior, where you know they're going to work well, and this is a word that always confused me, fungible. Fungibility, the ability to receive and take information in and not have hardcore beliefs or restrictions on how they should do things. If a person, whether they have 5 years, 10 years, 40 years, it doesn't matter. I've hired people from an internship program that didn't fit into, and I say culture, because I mean that fungibility sort of thing. They're not walking in and saying, all right, what's next? What can I do? I have an idea. It's really an exchange, and you have to, and your recruiters should be very good at this. Your HR professionals, your hiring managers should be attuned to this. How would they fit on the team? I think also it comes down to, you know, how are you interviewing these people? Are you asking a bunch of ridiculous questions that could literally be a drop-down click on an application? Don't turn your recruiters into robots. Let them have that 30 to 45 minutes to really see and get to know them. And also take this from Sir Richard Branson. I love this. He said to his Virgin Pulse teams, be kind to everybody you talk to. They are our clients. They're going to buy, at that time he had music stores, they're going to buy our music and they're going to sit on our planes. We want to keep these people as a client and a customer forever. And we want them, even if they don't get the job, to have a good experience. So we're moving away from, you know, how do you look for these people, but it's all about the experience and how you're accessing information about the firm at every step of the hiring process. Because again, you can just be blabbing about your company, which is obnoxious, rather than having the recruiter or the hiring team make those connections. And the last thing I want to add, because it is my pet peeve, behavioral gotcha questions in your interview, throw those out the door. Those are so 1980s. We are not here to test or to spook or to frighten people, and that's what that does. You want to welcome them and see what they offer you and take that as the information. And I'm happy to expand on that one-on-one. It's a fairly complicated thing in the recruiting thing, but you know, a lot of people, so what did you do in this situation when you were, you know, this? Be careful about that. That puts people on their back heels. You want people leaning in with information. I hope I answered the question. Sarah, what would you add?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's making me think about, well, one of the things that's making me think about is the creep of bias in interviewing and hiring and how challenging that can be. And the challenge, so the challenge I would put toward that is, my answer is which candidate, like it depends. And I would say there is huge value in a candidate who has seen other organizations and experienced other organizations and is going to bring that experience. Maybe they solved the similar kind of problems you're facing. Maybe they've had, you know, they've worked with similar kinds of people. So there's big value to me in experience. And there's always going to be value in the go-getter, brand new, early in the workforce, ladder climber. And so what I'll talk about real fast is this idea, and I apologize, the HEMIC people have heard me talk about this before, but this idea of rock stars and superstars. And I think, in my opinion, we need both. A rock star is your steady Eddie. Your rock star is the person who is their depth and their mastery goes deep, and they want to be a rock. They're the steady person on your team, right? And then the superstar is the person who's climbing the ladder. And those people are super helpful too. Those people play a role in every team as well. But sometimes myself, and what I see a lot of times with newer managers is we tend to gravitate towards these superstars. But I would challenge us to think about there's often a place for a rock star and a superstar, and what's the value and the benefit that both of those, how can they both play really valuable parts on your team? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Ari had a question, and this is an interesting one, and I think a challenge for many people. So she said she's seen corporations hire or retain some of the most difficult people to work with in terms of attitude and personality, but they've retained them because they have a very unique skill set, and that skill set is of value. So what is your perspective on, attitude versus aptitude in terms of retaining and hiring?
I can start this on the recruiting side. If you're not filtering the difficult people in the beginning and you're retaining someone who's become difficult, those are two different things. You should never hire someone who's difficult, because then we go back to, do they fit? No, we don't want to work with challenging people, and give them a couple interviews to see if it is. They're going to find a fit somewhere else. You're building a team where everyone wants to work together in very hard times. It's okay to say bye-bye. I know you're the subject matter expert. I know you think you're the most wonderful person in the world, but it's not going to fit for the team. Let your recruiters filter out the top, get your hiring managers to really look at those assets, and that, again, how do they play well in the sandbox? That's it. You can take somebody who's eager and agile and fungible and grow them in any direction, versus the people who are difficult to work with because they've been in the organization. That's a Sarah question, and I'm going to throw that over to you.
All right. What I will tell you is I'll tell you about our core values at HEMIC, and we have a core value that in the subcontext is we don't tolerate jerks. And there's a reason we don't tolerate jerks, is because that's one person who has a ripple effect on policyholders, agents, coworkers, and we decided that for us, that cost is too great for any skill set. And you'll hear our CEO talk pretty candidly about, what, in our organization, these are our values and this is what we stand for. Anyone is replaceable, anyone. And so I think it goes back to figuring out kind of what's the cultural fabric of your organization. Now, that said, some organizations, like if you're a Wall Street trader on the floor, being a jerk means something different, and they're going to define that. So you got to define what that means for your organization. So difficult people or things like that. Some people are going to tolerate that because that makes their organization work. In our case, we chose not to, and we said, we're all pretty clear on what jerk means, and we're not going to tolerate it. Then, then the way that gets operationalized is in our performance management system, we assess goal awards and we assess day-to-day and core values behavior. So you could kill it. You could be knocking it out of the park on your projects, but be a real jerk. That's not going to fly. You're not going to get rewarded. You can be just the kindest, most wonderful person, but something got in the way of your goals, that's going to show up too. So it's this balanced approach, but that's how we operationalize we're not going to tolerate jerks. That's how we did it.
And I think that speaks a lot to the firm when they stand behind their core values and their purpose, and recognize people for aligning to those. We have some other questions that kind of go back to what we talked about before, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Cheryl, you spoke about behavioral gotcha questions, and Christy wanted to get your tips when interviewing a candidate, and what type of questions are great to ask to gauge if the person is right fit.
Sure. So, I'll talk about a couple segments. So if you're hiring developers, engineers, people who are there to do a very technical job. It's okay to be testing them. So if you look at the Amazons, Meta, which was Facebook, you look at any of the firms that are really working heavily on the development side, creating apps, looking at even semiconductors, people who do very specialized work, you have to test them, okay? But let's not get to the point of a Meta or Amazon where you have 5 rounds of testing before you even speak to a person. Shame on them. I think they've stopped that because you know what? Pandemic has changed everything, which is so awesome. People need to talk to people. You've got to make sure that there's a good front line. I don't think anyone on this call is doing that. So let's just say, you know, island culture, the Aina's culture is that we bring people in and we're friendly. We show the spirit of aloha in Hawaii. And I think you take the spirit of aloha as far as you can with boundaries during the recruiting conversations. Gotcha questions, behavioral conversations are important, but it's the way you phrase it. So it takes a lot of training for your new hiring managers, and always have a senior hiring manager on the call that can kind of lead it back. Because I think, again, I don't think the newer generation of workers has encountered this, but it does come up because we feel like we have to put them to the test. Be very careful about asking people for writing samples. And the one thing, or, you know, oh, show me your thesis. No. If you ask one candidate, this is law, if you ask one candidate for something, you have to ask them all. And it should be in the job description. You will be expected to provide a writing sample. So those are the kind of questions that kind of, you know, when people aren't prepared, we want to welcome people. They're really in the catbird seat, to use a Southern term by my family. They have choices. We want to be as welcoming as possible without completely relaxing our boundaries and just taking everybody. We like you, come on. You know, we want to be very thoughtful, and it is a balance. I see why the questions are leaning in this way. So if I could give you an example of a gotcha question, I think, really challenging someone beyond their answer. There's a lot of times that candidates are, think about this. They've thought about this all night. They're dressed up. They're sitting in front of their computer. Their dog's wandering behind them. Their children are screaming. There's a leaf blower outside. There's a rooster crowing. There's all these things that are distracting them. This is not the time. The first or second interview is not the time to challenge them. It's the time to educate them about your organization. It's the time to bring them in and entice them and get them to the comfortable point. And I think this is where this is norming for me. You've got to get people to a comfortable point so they can perform. Organizations do this after hire, but we really need to do this in the recruiting process. And I don't see it because they think 1, 2 interviews, you're hired, and then, they go from the frying pan into the fire. That's not the experience you want. Your recruiting should be part of your onboarding, should be part of your early hire. It's a cycle. And there's people that do this beautifully on this island. And again, I think it's just the Aina culture. So hopefully I've answered your question, but do feel free to put something in the chat if that wasn't clear, and I'll type something else out. Sarah, what are your thoughts about gotcha questions?
Yeah, I really like what you said there, Cheryl, around this is the time. To me, I've always addressed interviews as, and I know it sounds cheesy, but like it is a two-way street. And so I want to be able to, as authentically as I can, without airing any dirty laundry or whatever, share what our organization is, and in the hopes that that's a genuine, authentic match. And so I've also always believed that in order for the candidate to be able to show up authentically, I got to kind of meet that, right? And so by asking them trick questions, by trying to be all buttoned up and formal, like it's a gotcha experience, I'm not going to get the best experience out of a candidate, and I'm not really going to get to know them. And I kind of want to get to know them because I kind of need to know that in order to make a good decision, right? And so for me, that's a really important thing is the comfort level in an interview, so that you really can get to the authentic. Is it a good fit? And if everyone's on their best behavior, you're not always going to get at that. There's a fine line, though. I mean, I do want to. Right. Like you got to make sure that you're keeping the level of professionalism that you would expect, but trying to figure out how you can present yourself authentically and encourage them and welcome them to do the same.
Thanks, Sarah. Before we move on to the career progression topic, I'll just take one of the final questions here from Lori. What are some of the key indicators that you guys have seen to recognize potential difficult people in interviews?
I can start that one. One of the things that I look for, or that concerns me, is when candidates talk negatively about another employer or a former coworker. And it's not necessarily because they're talking trash about someone else, like that's concerning. But for me, sometimes that I dig into that to try to understand, like, was there a missed opportunity? Was there a learning that could have come from that? Was there, like, what I'm kind of trying to understand is their level of self-reflection. So it's not that that can't ever come out, because I just said I wanted to hear authenticity. So sometimes that's legit and going to show up. And so, but it definitely raises the flag for me. And then I'll dig in a little bit to try to understand, like, yes, there were challenges. And what did you learn from that? And what did you take from that? So that I can use that to understand their level of self-reflection and things like that. But it is a red flag for me because I had a mentor once tell me, and I still believe this, that I think I've shared this before, small little smoldering things in an interview turn into flaming torches 6 months later, a year later. And the worst is to be like, oh man, I saw that and I just didn't dig into it. I just ignored it, or, whatever. So I just think you really got to be paying attention and, like, focused in that, and ask to understand, seek to understand, and be curious.
So I'm going to add, can I add two things that Terry, I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what you have to say. I'd like to also talk about lying. You have a really good background. Don't just blow through the background screen. People lie constantly about their education, and I think it behooves either a sourcing team or a recruiting team to just friendly go over the resumes. People make mistakes. They have a resume for 10 years. Oh, that cert, that's not active anymore. I've worked with companies that are so specific that if you've listed a cert that's active and it's not, you're out. Because one lie leads to the other. And I've worked with a lot of police and fire agencies throughout my career, and you can't get, you get a liar in front of you. What else have they done? It leads to the question. Intelligence people ask this too. Well, one lie, what else are they capable of? So it opens this, again, Pandora's box. It opens the floor to that. I had another thought, but I'll put it in the chat. So Terry, I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl. Actually, well, I wanted to move on to the career progression piece, because I think this is important for the leaders on the call. So looking at this great resignation era and looking at it from a brighter side, there are higher level internal opportunities that are becoming available as senior level leaders are vacating positions because they might be retiring early. So how can someone best prepare to take advantage of those internal opportunities as the positions open up?
Yeah, start now. Like, don't wait for the box to open, right? Be talking about in a humble, culturally appropriate kind of way. Be talking about your strengths. Make sure that you have a sponsor in the organization. Make sure that the work that you're doing is known. And I think this is particularly relevant for us as female leaders, is making sure that we, not in a boastful way, but we take ownership of our good work, and we own the value that we bring to the organization. Because once the role is already open, especially in some organizations where you start talking about senior things and where there's succession things in place, the role may be open, but there may have already been discussions or thoughts about who to fill that role. And so those things happen early before the formal discussion. So make sure, more than ever, because there's this opportunity out there, make sure that you're owning your value in the organization. Make sure that when you do really great work, you find a way to make sure that people know there was great work done. And I know that I'm coming up against something uncomfortable there, but just find a way to make sure that if it's not you, you have a sponsor or somebody in the organization that is ensuring that people are aware of the value that you bring, and that you're talking about what's next for you, the things that you're interested in, the value you might like to bring, the projects you're kind of interested in. So you're kind of always staying one step ahead, so that when that box opens, or when that opportunity comes up or the company needs that thing, you're the natural person that they're thinking about. So it's almost like start doing the job before the job actually shows up, or talking about the job or how you might do the job. I think that's a really important thing for us to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think too, just making the desire known to your to your executive level leaders helps set the stage, because sometimes if they don't perceive that you actually want to get to that next level, they might be thinking of a few other people than you. And I think what Sarah also mentioned in terms of understanding what that next level position is that you want, what are the behaviors and expectations that are aligned to that level or that particular role? What are your gaps in terms of what you know and your experience and expertise now, and what do you have to close to get to that? And working on that will help. Cheryl, did you want to add anything?
I don't know that I can. I think you covered it all. And I just want to say Terry Nobriga was someone that I will continue to send other women to because of her capacity for grace. And, one of the things that we were taught when we were working together is, what type of are you an advocate? Are you a sponsor? Are you listening? And I think the one thing that especially our early careerists don't know, that they can walk in and say, I just need you to listen. Encourage them, teach them to tell you what you can do for them. And I know that's a bigger conversation. We could do another hour on this, but, ask them up front as a senior leader, what is it you want me to do? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to advocate? Or do you want me to hang out and check in with you on 2 weeks? I can hear you vent. I can take action today, or what do you want, before they even tell you what it is. Because you're going as a senior leader, you're a doer. You got there where you needed to be because you do. We've all done that, right? We're so proactive, and it's like, okay, that's done. That's off my plate. And that might not be what they need. So get on the floor and work with them and say, what do you want? Let's play with the Lego set together and figure it out. And by the way, that's a very effective way for the early careerists. Not a lot of eye contact. Don't sit in front of them. Walk beside them. Take a walk. Go to the beach. Start a conversation about something else. Let them unfold. That time is essential for someone who's 0 to 5 years. Develop those relationships that way and understand the generational differences of the communication as well.
If I can add just real fast, I just want to go back to this idea of making sure that your work is seen and your value is recognized. So that's what we can do for ourselves. But the absolute thing we can all start doing today, this afternoon, is making sure we're doing that for others, right? Every one of us either has a direct report or a colleague or someone else who we can make sure their great work is being recognized and we're bringing up their name in a room. So, and just think, if all of us on this call were doing that it starts today. So I just want to make sure that as much as it's our job to bring up our own work, if you're uncomfortable doing that, it's super easy to start talking about the awesomeness of other people, the other women and the other people, the other leaders around you.
And I think that just circles back around to retention, because the more that you recognize publicly the people and align it to what great work they're doing that aligns to the firm's core values and the purpose, that means that many of those people will stay. They have the connection, exactly what you were talking about, Sarah. So I think we've come to the end. It came by really fast. I just want to say thank you very much to Sarah and Cheryl for sharing your great perspectives. You have a lot of experience, and it's been very valuable to me, and I'm sure to many of the women on the call. So thank you, everyone, for attending. I'll pass it on to Colleen to close us out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really, I have about 3 pages of notes packed with all this information, and so excited to share the takeaways with all of today's participants. So thank you so much to you, Terry, for moderating today, and to Sarah and Cheryl for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us. I know that there was quite a lot in the chat with questions, and thank you, Cheryl, for all of your follow-up in the chat. That's greatly appreciated. We are recording this, and so we will be forwarding that to the participants probably tomorrow once we've had a chance to get that saved. But let's see. I think what we wanted to do, Krista, do you think you could pop up the PowerPoint for us, because we wanted to share, well, again, thank you to our sponsors first. So thank you again, Central Pacific Bank, First Hawaiian Bank, Hawaiian Electric, Hawaiian Telecom, and HEMIC for attending. And then maybe if we could go back to the first slide, Krista, and make sure everybody knows what our upcoming events are, because I didn't review those at first. So our next event is going to be on May 5th. That'll be on delegating and building your second team. And then August 4th is employee engagement, and then our Pauhana, hopefully can be a Pauhana this year in December. That's to be determined right now. But once again, thanks again so much, everybody. And if the panelists could just stay on for 1 minute after everybody gets off, that would be really appreciated. So thanks, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, everybody's getting off. Here we go. I think some people were on trying to remove some people that may not have been.
Brittany wants us to smile.
What's that? Oh, Brittany, you can
Brittany
stay on.
wants
It's
us
all
to
right.
smile.
You're
Just like
allowed.
in general, or
I was like in the background. I just wanted to take a picture of you guys so that we can post it.
Okay, let me fix my hair.
okay.
All right. You guys look good. I took a couple good ones, you know, while you guys were talking, but yeah, it's kind of weird when you guys are like in a like mid talk.
Oh,
yeah. Exactly like
you
that,
look
Sarah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I won't
Okay,
do
I'm gonna turn off my camera. Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Nice. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm gonna go now.
Okay.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
guys. You did awesome.
Brittany.
Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much, everybody. I think just to quick wrap up, there were so many questions in the chat, and I think we got to as many as we possibly could. So thank you for staying on top of that, Terry and Cheryl too, for answering them. That was